Can you imagine how people on this planet would react if they knew there was someone like this out there?
One day, you're gonna have to make a choice. Whether to stand proud in front of the human race or not.
Hello, I'm the Universal Critic. I talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. And look in the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a new Superman movie. Yes, after a string of dismal sequels and a much-maligned attempted reboot, the Superman franchise pretty much has nowhere to go but up, up, and away. And Man of Steel delivers on that promise, for the most part. I would tell you the plot, but, well, this is a Superman origin story. Do I need to tell you the plot, really? You all know it. Plus, it helps me avoid spoilers. Instead, I'll just skip ahead to the characters. Henry Cavill plays this new version of Superman and Clark Kent, and the latter is given surprisingly more screen time than the former. Yes, a good chunk of this movie is spent with Clark roaming the Earth trying to find himself, and honestly, I think it works most of the time. It's nice to see a darker, more mature version of a character who is often reduced to a bland, one-note good guy who never makes a mistake. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people complain about Superman being a boring character, and I kinda see where they're coming from. He always does the right thing, never even questions what he's doing. You know he's gonna do the right thing. He's not like Batman, who doesn't always do the right thing. Superman is just dull. But this movie manages to improve on that, because this version not only makes mistakes, but actually doesn't do the right thing all the time. And not just in little ways, but towards the end of the movie in a very large way. But that's all I can say without giving spoilers. Amy Adams is our new Lois Lane, and no, I didn't think her red hair was distracting. Get over it, people. Though I think it's funny that now Lois Lane is a redhead, and Lana Lang, who is a brief cameo in this movie, is a brunette. Yeah, that'll send the fanboys into a frenzy. But I digress. Yes, Adams manages to bring some life into a usually one-note character, coming off as an intelligent, seasoned, and mature reporter, and more importantly, doesn't come off as a one-note, helpless damsel, which is a welcome relief. Michael Shannon plays the villain, General Zod, and yeah, we have General Zod again as a villain. I wish they would just pick a new villain for once, besides him and Lex Luthor. And the film wisely has him avoid imitating Terrence Stamp's iconic portrayal of the character. They also give him a more fleshed out backstory. His attempt to take over Krypton is actually shown on screen, thus giving his exile into the Phantom Zone more of an impact. Also, it is established that Kryptonians are genetically engineered from birth for a certain purpose, and in Zod's case that was to be a warrior to defend his people at all cost. This adds a more sympathetic side to his monstrous deeds, which is always a nice addition to a villain. A big part of this film is Superman's upbringing, which is of course shaped by his biological and adoptive families. Russell Crowe plays Superman's biological father, Jor-El, and while many people, like for say Doug Walker, complain that Crowe is fairly emotionless, here it kinda makes sense. Krypton is meant to be a society of complacent, traditionalistic dullards, so yeah, it kinda makes sense that Crowe would be kinda flat and hiding all his emotions, don't you think? Jor-El's wife is also in this movie. I can't remember the actress's name, and she's not really in it for that long anyway, so moving on. We of course also have Superman's step-parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent, played by Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. Costner manages to pull off the wise and idealistic Jonathan, and Lane manages to pull off that kind and attentive Midwestern housewife. And it's kind of funny to see both of them age about 30 years in 2.5 hours. With that said, that brings me to my only real major complaint with the film: the pacing. The main problem with the film is that there are scenes that go on throughout the movie that could easily be cut in half, and the movie will be better off for it. And nowhere is that more apparent than the action scenes. I mean, seriously, the big climax at the end with Superman and Zod finding each other, it goes on for like 7 minutes. You could have easily cut it in half and you wouldn't have missed anything. And while this film does do a good job of revamping Superman's shop-worn origins, I must say, I am anxious for a sequel to this film so we can finally move on from his origin and tell a new story that we haven't seen in any of the other movies. But despite those complaints, I'd highly recommend this film to Superman fans and casual moviegoers alike. It's worth the price of admission despite any complaints I may be making. I'm the Universal Critic. I talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. Goodbye.